charges against Mr. Ravele. Mr. Ravele, did you ever come to court and face the charges?
Well, the NPA refused to prosecute because there was no evidence. In fact, the NPA spokesperson said there was no single shred of evidence. So these guys took me through this. So the case was built for the media. So, and unfortunately, Your Lordship, I understand their time constraints. But there's one thing I want to say about the non-disclosure agreement. They make you sign these non-disclosure agreements. And then the next thing, they leak the story to the media. And you can't respond to the media. So my story was leaked. On my way home after I resigned, I got a call from a Business Day journalist who told me we just received information that you just resigned after you were given a suspension letter. Is it true? I mean, this is happening after we have agreed.
So you're saying that you agree not to talk to the media, but SARS talked to the media and you're muzzled because you've signed an agreement that you're not going to speak. So there's only one story, one side of the story going to the media.
In fact, it wasn't only there were other. But there's one thing that I need to mention here. If I don't mention it, I'll be doing an injustice to this process. My wife was treated like a casualty in this process. She was caught in crossfire.
Was she also working for SARS?
Yes, I found her here. We met here, basically. I mean, they started leaking stories to the media about her. And she got calls from the media saying, we understand you and your husband are being investigated by the Hawks for fraud and corruption. What do you have to say? You know?
Did she also resign eventually?
Yeah, she resigned. She resigned. She couldn't work in that. By the way, this is happening after the commissioner has said to me, I said to him, this is about me. Leave my wife out of it. I mean, I didn't understand why people would put an innocent person through that. You know, I understand my guilt could have been that I was seen to be aligned to Pravin Gordhan. That could have been the reason why this pressure was coming. People that were seen to be aligned to me after I left, they went through the same process. There's a man called Kumaren Mudli. He has been on suspension since February the 2nd last year. You know, they concocted some charges. So some people could not be promoted. They were told you are a gene man. What I'm saying here, so I'm sorry, Judge, the time is too little. But I feel there are things that I need to say that are covered by the scope of this inquiry.
I understand that, but all I'm saying to you is that if you want to tell us the full story, I think you've done so to a degree in the document you gave to Advocate Steinberg. If you want to tell us more, put it in writing, and we will take it into account. But I think that we're just looking for, at the moment, for the main events that occurred that you've been telling us about that led to your resignation. Yeah, but I think we've got a fair idea of that, and I know, Mr. Ravele, that... May I just finish, Mr. Ravele? I realize that you said it was very painful for you, and no doubt you want to express that. I understand that. But if you could just contain yourself to the things that are most relevant. What I would like to know is this, though, Mr. Ravele. That unit, so-called rogue unit, as I understand it, I've never quite understood, the unit itself was not unlawful. What is alleged is that there were some rogues within it. That seems to be the case. Is that right?
No, they are saying it was unlawful.
The unit itself?
Yeah, the accusation is that the unit itself is unlawful. It was created without following the law. It is a contravention of the Interceptions and whatever Act, as well as the Strategic Intelligence Act.
But then you say that the unit itself was lawful.
No, it was lawful.
And what I want to know is, when you were told to disband it, does that mean there was no longer a unit that was investigating criminal activity?
No, there was. I think, let me just correct one thing. It is not entirely true that the unit conducted criminal investigations. We had a criminal investigations department, They did technical support. Like I just said, if there was going to be a search and seizure operation, they'll go and do your advanced reconnaissance work. And if you had a team of criminal investigators looking into somebody like Ravele, for instance, they will make sure that team is safe. Whatever they do, these guys will go and assess and conduct a risk assessment and say, you can proceed and do this. But where they pick up red flags, they'll say, wait a little bit, we could be having a problem here. That's what they did. They were not criminal investigators. They provided technical support or intelligence support to investigators.
Mr. Ravele, what do you do now?
Sorry, could I just ask?
Please, Professor Kurtz.
After the disbandment, were there functions that had previously been assigned to that unit which were now no longer permitted to take place? Necessary functions before that there's been it's not been replaced anywhere else in the organisation.
Correct.
So your criminal investigation capacity was weakened.
Yeah, because they didn't have the support they needed. You see, if you can just bear with me, around 2000, we decided that our investigations are going to be intelligence-led. You don't investigate a case until a proper threat assessment has been done. And whatever, so when you go there, you've got an intelligence briefing on the taxpayer or on the entity that you're looking at. So that team was doing that, doing a risk assessment and pick up things that would help the investigation. So that part wasn't being done, as far as I know, after that was disbanded. I don't know now, but when I was still in SARS, no work like that was happening.
I'll follow up.
I want to end by asking you what happened to you after you left SARS.
Look, I spent the 6 months sitting at home. And when I resigned here, I had a promise of a job that I was going to start in the middle of June. Because of the restraint of trade, the person that wanted to hire me hired somebody else. So I sat at home for 6 months. And then only in 2016, in August, I worked in the Ministry of Finance as one of the advisors to the Minister of Finance until the day he got fired. Since that day, which is more than a year now, I'm unemployed. I don't know if that answers your question. I'm unemployed.
I just want to follow up on the HRU, the high-risk unit. You've indicated here that firstly it did everything lawfully, but you suggest that it bought cameras, video cameras, laptops, with the members of that unit's own resources. Why was that case? Why was that the case?
Look, I was in there when the equipment was, they bought their own laptops. But when I asked Mr. Johan van Lochrenberg, he said it was because of budgetary constraints. It was because of budgetary constraints. There were years that our budgets were cut. So he said it's because of budgetary constraints. And they had to juggle and say where should most money in the budget go to, and these guys can do with their own things, or they can do without laptops. I don't think everybody had a laptop. Some of these guys use notebooks. They write their notes, and they go and sit in a boardroom in a meeting, use the flip chart, somebody will type it up. That's how they used to work. Yeah.
Mr. Ravele, you told us about the business units for which you were a chief officer at SARS. What impact would or was the disbandment of most of those units would have had to tax compliance in general, especially looking at the types of cases, the type of work that your business unit did, both in tax and customs?
Let me give you just one example. We had a unit called the Tactical Enforcement Interventions Unit, which focused on inland customs transgressions. So they didn't operate at the borders. They operated inland. They looked into round-tripping of goods. They looked into bogus exports. They looked into fraud related to bonded warehouse and diplomatic shops because they're duty-free. So after I left SARS, that unit was told, you're not going to conduct any inspections at cigarette factories. So all inspections at cigarette factories were stopped. No reason given. To this day, there are no inspections at cigarette factories. So you can imagine, if people are saying there's a lot of people are not paying excise, there's nobody that can go and check whether people are paying excise or not. That's just one example. So when the Minister of Finance complains about lack of compliance in that sector, it wasn't by accident. It was caused. It was caused. I mean, that's the one thing. I believe also, Your Lordship, that the whole operating model review things was about dismantling enforcement. I mean, there were specialized units like the projects units, for example, that investigated cases that raked in billions. That those units have been dissolved. No reasons given, because they are rogue. So it's a very painful thing. Because this is not about me, it's not about Mr. Pillay, it's not about Mr. Gordon. It's about the country. So,
and what would be the impact on the economy?
The impact will be huge. It means the amount of excise SARS collects has dropped. Everybody is manufacturing and charging 450 a pack of 20s. 450. If you go to a spaza shop in Mamelodi, a pack of 20s for some brands is between 450 and 6 rand. When you charge that amount of money, it is clear you never paid a single cent in excise. But the only way you can see that is if you send people to inspect and see what these guys are doing. If you stop all inspections, people are going to continue as they wish.
Thank you.
So let me understand that by the time you left, was there no one investigating, as you had said, going to see if the tobacco factories are producing? There were people.
Yeah. Kumaran Mudli and his unit, the technical interventions unit, they instructed them to stop the inspections, and then they suspended him after that.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Maybe I didn't understand your answer.
There were people looking into that, but after I left, they were instructed to stop inspecting cigarette factories.
And there's no replacement for the people that were sent to other units, as it were?
No.
Sorry, I have a similar question to the judge. I'm just not following. So this deficiency you're talking about, that cigarettes are sold and it's clear they're not paying any VAT.
Excise, yeah.
Excise, I mean. Are you saying that after you went, that gap exists?
Yes. Well, it's not because I left. It's because somebody decided that these inspections should stop. There was an instruction issued that these inspections of tobacco factories must stop.
Sorry, so it's not because you were...
No, it's got nothing to do with me.
There was a decision taken to stop those suspensions.
Yeah?
Who made that decision?
As far as I know, and these have been told by people in that unit, a decision was made by Mr. Makwakwa.
How do you know that this instruction was given? Because you weren't, I mean, this is second-hand you're getting that, is that right? Can you tell us who first-hand knew about that?
The people in customs and enforcement knew about it.
As I understand your position, before you had left, there was already a move towards disbanding these investigative units. Is that right? So I understood you.
I don't know about that.
Before you left?
No. There was no move to disband them before I left.
But you told us earlier that that at the meeting after the Sunday Times reports had appeared, and that's now apparently a November meeting you're talking about, you told us that at that meeting the Commissioner said this rogue unit, as it
The
was
one unit, the high-risk investigation.
high-risk unit must be disbanded.
Only that one.
Yes.
Not the technical interventions unit, not the centralized projects unit. Only only this one unit was supposed to
I've
be
heard
disbanded.
talk as well of the National Research Group. I think that's the name. Is that the same as the high-risk unit, or is that something different?
Well, after the National Research Group was dissolved, the high-risk investigations unit was formed, made up of people that came from the of 6 people that came from the National Research Group.
And then the high-risk unit was also dissolved, you say?
Was dissolved by me on the Commissioner's instruction.
Now, let me just, perhaps I cut you too short. Just sort of looking at your body language, you cut you a bit short on you were telling us about your resignation and what led to it, etc. Is there anything further you want to say on that?
So before you do, may I just ask a question on this line? Mr. Ravele, you've spoken about SARS's capacity to investigate the illicit tobacco industry being closed down. Are there other illicit industries where the capacity to investigate and enforce the law closed down?
Let me say the illicit economy broadly. So those projects units like the Centralized Project, National Projects Unit, the Illicit Economy Research Unit, they were looking into the illicit economy in general. So there's no capability now that's looking into the illicit economy, as far as I'm aware.
So it would affect liquor and everything else.
Liquor, everything.
Rhino, horns, the whole gamut. Mr. Ravele, the judge invited you to say what you need to say about your resignation story.
Look, nothing. I'm fine. And thanks for the.
And I'll give you. Please go ahead. I don't want you to leave feeling that.
My thought process is messed up now. I can't.
Well, if it gets sorted out, tell me, and you can come back again.
Thank you very much.
One last question. Mr. Ravele, the units, some of the units which were under you investigated cases like, you read about them, your relevant creature cases. The type of skill and the level of commitment that those individuals who worked in those units, is it the type of skill that you'll find in any branch operations or?
You need forensic audit and financial investigative skills. You will need someone who has been doing this work for a while. I know one thing that we were accused of was that those specialized units were made up of mainly white male and a few white females and a few blacks at the bottom. But the reality of South Africa is that you don't find those skills out there. We had a program. I'm trying to answer your question, but answer other questions that haven't been asked. We had a deliberate program of recruiting CAs into SARS, and we're kind of naive. We thought by being a CA, you can conduct a tax investigation, But if you are a CA that worked in a tax department, you'll be able to conduct a tax investigation. And those people are not, you don't find them readily available out there. So to answer your question directly, this is not a type of skill that somebody will finish their BCom and honors in auditing and come and do. So they need to rigorous training. And unfortunately, tax audit is not taught in any university in this country. This skill cannot be learned in-house in SARS. We signed an agreement with SABC to get, we had a program of incubating CAs inside. That worked a little bit because they were being incubated from SARS. They're working in the tax environment. I don't know how far it is at the moment, but one challenge that we have, or we had in my time in SARS, is that we're failing to attract the right skills, the right color of the skills. And this will remain a challenge for a long, long time. So it doesn't help when people say, are you guys saying that black people can never be auditors? Of course, no one is saying that. We're saying we have to design a deliberate program. I don't know if the academy is still around, but for my final years in SARS, the academy wasn't helpful in training people to do technical core business work. They were very good in what do you call these soft skills, change management, operational health and safety. I'm not saying they are not important. They are, but equally important is the core skills. So many of these people that I'm talking about in those specialized units, many of them are old geezers who could retire in 2 years. So if you don't develop the second layer that takes over, you're doomed. Just simple as that.
To the best of your knowledge, where are they now? Where are the people who worked in those divisions?
Some left, some are scattered all over the show. I know there was a unit created in legal case completion. I'm told that unit has been disbanded too. But some of them have gone back to enforcement, to audit and other areas. But most of them left. They've been taken by the big audit firms. They are working for those audit firms. Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to come back to the high-risk unit. Was there any time when the Department of, what is this, SSA, did it ever raise any issues with SARS during your time about the activities of the HRU?
Look, I think it was once, but it wasn't the high-risk investigations unit. It was the National Research Group. I was invited into that meeting because as part of my portfolio, this was in 2009, I was responsible for intergovernmental relations. I used to advise the commissioner on such matters. So I was invited to a meeting where some senior people from SSA, then NIA, came to meet with us to ask about the activities of that unit. And the meeting was based on 2 dossiers that they received that were compiled by former employees, making a wide range of allegations. And they were investigating it formally. The team was led by a Mr. Bob Mhlanga, who was very senior in the agency. So he came with in a group of 4. We had a meeting, we shared documents with them. I attended the first part of the meeting to, the PR, high-level type. So when they went into the nitty-gritty, I walked out because it was in my business. I know they raised issues. I also know that matter was investigated. When at the time we asked for a report around 2010, we said, share with us the report of your findings. We haven't received them. I don't know if the new commissioner received the report because he asked in that meeting whether Mr. Richa has seen the report. When I left SARS, I had not seen the report, but I know there was an investigation.
Were there any suggestions that the activities of that research unit may have been in breach of the National Strategic Intelligence Act by them?
No.
Let's get back to one thing. You were the charges against you When did you first receive an indictment? That was before you left, I would imagine.
There were two indictments. There was an internal one. That was part of the letter of suspension. And then the external one, this is what happened. I got a call from the detective saying that I need to see you and your wife. We are investigating you for corruption and fraud, whatever. And we need to take a warning statement. That's when I discovered that also this thing is continuing, which was more than a year after the complaint was laid. So that was it was around September 2016.
So that's after you'd left.
Yeah, long after I have left. September 2016.
But the charge was laid against you before you left.
Yeah, on the 23rd of March 2015.
And a year later, the police said, we want to interview you and take a warning statement.
Yeah.
When were the charges withdrawn?
In September last year. September last year.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Judge.
Appreciate it.
I want to thank the commissioners, the evidence leaders for the opportunity. I know I could be a very difficult customer at times. But you guys are big girls and boys. So. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Ravele.
That's fine, Judge. That's fine. Yeah, that's okay, Judge.
So we'll start at 11:15.
The next suggestion you're going to make is we mustn't talk.
Yes, they just that's what we have to they said
Sorry, man, I just put my camera next to you.
Don't worry at all. We're waiting for... No.
Just gonna move forward from
That's fine. No, I'm just changing these batteries. We're on 2, so I was charging them. I just want to swap everything.